Welcome to EEXSport Talk. I'm your host, Enyadike Jr., here with my father, the legend, sports analyst, and businessman Emeka Enyadike. And we are here to talk about the AFCON quarterfinals. Finally here. This is it. I think this is probably I think even more than the semis almost. This is where you can really get lost. But before we actually get into that, we're gonna talk about once again Nigeria. One of the big talking points wasn't Nigeria's just dominating 4-0 win over Mozambique. Instead, it was the on-field incident involving Victor Osimhen, Ademola Lookman, as well as reports of another bonus dispute. Is it possible for us, just as a team, as a country, just people? What does it want me to say? Drink water and sleep or something, and everyone else. Can we ever just have a major tournament without some kind of off-field or internal drama?
Well, the thing is, most times this drama is a big part of our DNA. Even when it is managed, it is still kept within this scenario where people grab in from outside, whether it's the media guys around or just friends. There will always be some kind of leak, and people will talk about it, and that's just the way it is. So. The good thing is that it's all resolved. I think a lot of it has to do with the government processes, because these things are usually done in a way where they want to pay the players in their various accounts back home and all that. So that is how it's been resolved now. But like you said, it's got to happen at all. I mean, every time we're out of the tournament, and I think that's just how we are built. Sometimes it works favorably, sometimes it's negative. Like the World Cup qualifiers, I think it was a huge mental scenario for them, which in some way had an impact in how they didn't make it through. But I think that eventually this one hasn't been that bad because the boys trained and they've traveled to Marrakesh. So I can confirm that. I did speak to people close by, and I've been informed that they've traveled there. So hopefully all of that is resolved and they can get back to the action. Victor Osimhen also, that whole issue seems resolved. He was back training with the team, and
That's right.
maybe we can focus on football once again. But it was a lot of drama, the way it
Yeah.
happened, and quite unfortunate, because I've never seen a team that's winning by such high margin and then they're still arguing
There's
and
still
fighting.
something.
Understandably, because they failed to qualify for the World Cup, and I'm sure they don't want to take chances.
Yeah.
If everybody understands and they can bury the hatchet, I think that at the end of the day, let them go and get the job done on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what you said, we focus on the football, so let's move. Let's go into the quarterfinals. The big one right now. Algeria versus Nigeria. This right here, this is probably the most mouth-watering tie at the round. We've got two heavyweights, two proud footballing nations. From what you've seen so far, where is this game going to be won or lost? And, I know we're going to focus, but and things have been resolved. But
I think it's,
yeah, boy,
both teams have a lot of history. I can't ever remember any time there was never rivalry between Nigeria and Algeria. In fact, back at 78, that's the oldest I can remember, was the All Africa Games. Algeria won that one 1-0. Then Nigeria beat Algeria 3-0 to win the AFCON in 1980. It was so comprehensive. But even then, the Algerian team, they were in that game. They hit the post. They were in that game for a long, and they had a very young team. And just to prove that they were not as bad as the scoreline, less than, I think it was actually a year and a half. So we beat them in March of 1980. By October 1981, they came to Lagos and beat Nigeria 2-0, and eventually beat Nigeria 2-1 in away and qualified to the World Cup in Spain, 4-1 aggregates. And then they beat Nigeria again was 2-1. And then in 84, 2 years later, both teams played out what was a draw. But that game almost seemed like an accord game. They were in the same group. They both won their games and they just didn't want to beat each other. But then there was this massive semifinals again in 1988, which ended in 10 players each, and Nigeria won on penalties. And then subsequently, Nigeria became a lot more dominant. and we actually beat them to qualify for the World Cup first time in '93, and then beat them in the qualifiers for 2018, beat them in the qualifiers for 2006. I think it was. We beat them at home by 1-0. I remember that game, but then we went and beat them 5-1 away. But recent history during the AFCON in 2019, Algeria beat Nigeria in the semifinals. Riyad Mahrez with a free kick, and so this game is quite poised and very, very intricate one. Both teams are the teams with the perfect results. They won their group games and all that.
Absolute perfect
Algeria
results.
struggled against Burkina Faso in the round of 16, but they did manage to get a late goal. And Nigeria, of course, like you said, won 4-0. So a lot of history between both teams. And even in terms of how they play, there's something that has been consistent with Algeria. They play very intricate passes. They have a lot of tendency to bring a lot of Algerian players born in France. In fact, their goalkeeper is Zidane's son. So, that's a big strength, and they have a very good coach, Petkovic, shown some kind of good in-game management. So now the challenge is, as good as they've been, we saw a bit of their struggle against Burkina Faso. Nigeria has been nearly perfect. Struggled against Tunisia a bit late, but Mozambique was a perfect game. So that's it. That's how it is poised.
So we can make no mistake. This has to be a perfect game. Like I said,
it looks like it'll be a perfect game, but I'm gonna go for.
It has to be. Yeah.
I'm gonna go for a Nigeria win. I'm very confident Nigeria will beat them.
Right. Let's go on to Mali and Senegal. Mali under Coach Tom Saintfiet have arguably been the shock and awe team of the tournament. We just saw they edged out Tunisia on penalties after extra time. Does that extra physical and mental load just count against them being that underdog in this tournament? Are they going to go through? Are they going to push through all the way? Or Senegal? We've already discussed their pedigree. They're pretty much they're. If Morocco is number one, Senegal is literally number two, and they're fighting. So is Senegal just about to stomp them and go? Or what are we looking at?
It looks on paper, it looks like Senegal will ride over them. But we've seen with Mali, and especially with Tom Saintfiet, the coach, he took Gambia to the quarterfinals in 2021. So he's a guy who's like a witch doctor or some kind of magician. The way he galvanizes his teams.
Don't say that too loud. We're talking about African fans. African fans are watching this. Do not say witch doctor too loud.
Well, we've had white doctors as coaches nicknamed. It's one game that anybody who bets against Mali, they haven't won any game, but they're still there, which tells you how difficult it is to beat them. So if they overcome, they do their recovery well enough from going all the way to penalties in the last game. I think they've had enough days to do that. I think as good as Senegal is, this game is another game that Mali will push them to extra time.
Yeah, and I guess that's probably where it might get decided.
I wouldn't be surprised if. I'm tempted to go with Senegal because they have some surprise. I mean, the youngster Ibrahim Baye that they brought in the last time was a surprise, but they still have Sadio Mane and Nicholas Jackson. Yeah, maybe Senegal might just be a bit too strong for Mali in the end. Even if it goes to extra time, I think Senegal will edge it.
Here's another classic: Cameroon versus Morocco, the hosts. Cameroon, they looked every bit the indomitable Lions when they sent South Africa home. That's you can enjoy your World Cup, but you don't get to enjoy the AFCON. I'm still bitter. I'm not salty, by the way. I'm not salty.
I know you got a lot of stick for Nigeria not qualifying. Enjoy your moment. I think you deserve it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So they look great. Morocco, they actually kind of had to dig deep a bit to get past Benin. And we've talked about it. They're the home team. Every single fan in those stands, with the exception of obviously tourists and people who've come in from wherever. But the people in those stands, they're there for the Moroccan boys. And so it's like, this Cameroon, they're going through because they got experience, obviously, they got a lot of pedigree. Or is this like Morocco's home advantage? It's just like, no, this is our country. We are the ones who are walking away with that trophy and sending all of you home.
I have not been convinced with Morocco in this tournament, I must be very frank. I think the pressure of being at home, pressure of how good they were at the last World Cup and how everyone ranks them very highly. Expectations are quite high, but I think that, they are missing something. I know they have Hakimi back, but they have like 3 players who are amongst the veterans. The leader, Roman Saiz, Onahi is also injured, and Amrabat. They're a little older than they were before, but in these tournaments, usually you need the experienced hands, and I think that's something that they would have needed in this game against Cameroon, because I went against Cameroon the last time. I thought Hugo Bross would be able to do something. But what I saw with the Cameroonian team, I think to an extent Cameroon was lucky because South Africa had chances early in the game that could have buried them 3 or 4 goals. So Morocco will need to score early, because once Cameroon settles into that game, then it will be a battle. And they were really, really impressive. So I'm going to go for an upset. Because, I mean, let's face it, Morocco's only ever won the AFCON once and that was like 50 years ago, 1976. In modern times, as good as they've been, even in the 80s when they had Zaki and all of those fantastic players, they never could win AFCON. I think they got to the finals in 2004 and lost to Tunisia. But since then, they've always been the greatest underachievers.
Right.
So,
Point, but at the same time, what we've been talking about the last 2-3 months, yeah, we've been seeing so many different firsts. So many people qualifying, so many teams qualifying for the World Cup for the first time in almost half a century. Teams making it to the knockout stages of this very AFCON for the first time in, once again, nearly half a century. So that we haven't won in 50 years. This is our home country. We're hosting this thing. I feel like that's an extra motivation, you know, like knowing that, because this is where I said I personally believe like quarters are probably more, or almost more important than semis. Not necessarily in the sense that because obviously knockouts is knockouts. You get knocked out. But like I think by the semis, you kind of already have an idea of who's walking out of any major tournament. There's obviously room for upsets. But in the quarters, like this is still this stage of like Wild West almost, where you can just get shot out of a window somewhere. So I feel like this is where they're probably going to lock in like seriously, because like they're so close. So yeah, they haven't been as impressive as a lot of people expected them to be, but I think they're going to be extra motivated for this one. Like
no, they will be.
I don't expect them to upset them.
They will be. I think that they are good enough. Like I said, but they will have to do something that they haven't done in a while, which is hit Cameroon as early as they can. Because if this game drags on, then they're going to be, the pressure will be a lot more on them. And, this is the place where they can just have their entire tournament implode in their face.
Yeah.
If they score early, then they have a chance. They score early, get a couple of goals early and try and hold on to it. But if Cameroon manages to drag them on, Cameroon has probably the second best AFCON win record after Egypt. So they come back well, and this is a Cameroonian team that dropped out on Abubakar players. They have a lot of, the key for them is a lot of youngsters with something to prove, and Mbuemo has been brilliant. So I think it's a very dicey game, but could go either way. But I reckon Morocco gets early, they win. If they don't and it drags on, the Cameroon are not indomitable lions for nothing.
In Egypt, of course, most AFCON wins ever. They are in there with the current champions, Côte d'Ivoire. They're in there with their devastating attacking core. Obviously, they have Salah, they have Omar Marmoush. But for the Ivorians, they've had Amad Diallo, he's been producing those MVP level performances. Can Egypt contain Diallo and his supporting cast? Let's call them that. No disrespect intended, of course. Or right now, are the champions built for this? Because I mentioned the pressure is on Morocco because they're the hosts, but these guys are the ones currently holding the title. So, like, if they're out, Yeah, this is another team with basically everything to lose. So what are we looking at?
It's going to be the most interesting game of this qualifiers, Egypt against Côte d'Ivoire. The Ivorians are defending champions. They struggled the last time and found their way later. Actually had to change coaches. And something very funny with this Ivorian team, through the World Cup qualifiers, we were ultra defensive. They played on the counter and they got goals. In this tournament, they've been more attacking. And it's looking for me like they're going to be able to change something in this game against Egypt. Because if I look at Egypt and Côte d'Ivoire history, especially in the 21st century, Egypt almost always finds a way to win. In fact, when Egypt won the AFCON in 2006, they were in the same group with Ivory Coast. They beat them twice. They beat them in the group stage and beat them in the finals. And that was a very painful game because the Ivorian team was stacked. That was also the year they qualified for the World Cup for the first time. But I think they met again in 2008 in Ghana during the AFCON, and Egypt beat them in the semifinals. And recently in Cameroon 2021 AFCON, they beat them. This was in 2008 it was 4-1, and then this last one was on penalties, which Mohamed Salah, Trezeguet. My worry is Mamouche. Mamouche hasn't been anything close to what we've seen him, what we know he can do. And maybe the coach has an opportunity to move him further to the left. But this is one game that I think the Ivorians will, from what I saw them in this last game where they steamrolled Burkina Faso, I think that they will hit Egypt. I'm not saying Egypt will not score, but if the Ivorians attack the way we've seen them, they might, or rather they will shock Egypt.
I'm going for Egypt. I'm going safe. I'm the safe betting man. I'm going to go with Egypt. If I'm wrong, I'll eat this hat. It's fine. I won't eat this hat. I love this hat. So no, but yeah, these next couple of days, it's been an incredible tournament. First and foremost, let's just say that. And these are going to be some great games. You know, so Dad, I look forward to seeing it. I look forward to checking again when the quarters are over to seeing which predictions came through, which ones didn't, if there are any surprises.
But last time I got 6/8, so it's not bad.
Yeah, so that works. We'll see that. We'll see how this.
I've gone with some risky bets this time around, but
Yeah.
If it happens like that, that would be like exciting for me because that means some upsets, means
No, that's a good
some
thing.
shock, like Morocco out
We
and Egypt out.
yeah, I feel like we need. Sometimes I feel like we need more upsets in football. We can't always be the same people winning every time. Look, with people
What is
who
so
win, they
fun?
win. Sometimes it's like somebody who you didn't, some team or country, even at club level. It's nice. It's still my favorite. My favorite team, my favorite year in the Premier League history is the year Leicester City won. They just came in out of nowhere, took the whole thing by storm, and then they just collapsed afterwards.
There hasn't been too much upsets yet. The top seeded teams in this tournament, in the pot one, who were the ranked teams, all made it to the quarterfinals. The top two teams in pot two, they also made it. So at the end of the day, you got to look at it and say maybe the strongest teams lived up to their billings and they deserve to be there. So where it is right now, out of the 8 teams, 7 of them have won AFCON before. So the chance is that we will find one team that becomes a new winner.
Yeah, it's
not there.
It's not there. And like I said, I feel like by the semis, you're pretty much already, based on form and everything, you basically have an idea of who's taking the whole thing. That's my opinion. There can still be surprises, obviously, but I think by once we get into just these final 4 teams, you pretty much have an idea of at least 1 or 2 who are guaranteed to take this thing. Here, I still think there's some Wild West, things going on. I think I've actually very recently watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and a lot of guys who are shooting you from the windows. So you always have to watch that. You can't it's not even just the guy in front of you or the guys in front of you, it's the guy up on the window. So you never know. Honestly. But again, I'm sticking to my safe bets here. Thanks, Dad. It's always good to talk to you.
All right.
And if you enjoyed this, if you all enjoyed this conversation and you want to just, keep up with the latest on football talks, whether it's African, whether it's international, and sports in general. We just please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We will see you all next time.